she's running. Not for long. So to preface this video, we've had some trouble getting the exact year of this Johnson motor. So the owner's manual that came with the boat when I purchased it, which may just be a replacement that's not correct, but it's saying it's a 1962 Super Seahorse. So the model number V4AL, and the motor tag says 16D, which indicates it's a 64. But from people looking at it and seeing pictures of the cowl and how the gas line is hooked up to the motor, everyone says that it's a 1960 model. So I've had a little trouble finding the correct parts for this motor, and so I've been ordering it by this 62. Everyone else says it's a 60. The model number says it's a 64. So I'm still confused as to exactly what kind of motor I have. But by any means, I don't really know what I'm doing. Never worked on an outboard motor before, never owned one. So this is my first take at it. So this is you'll see during this video that I'm learning as I go, and it might be a little painful for some people that know a lot about outboards to watch, because I do learn from mistakes. But this is a video about me getting this motor running and getting it going and water ready. So I hope you enjoy. So I've got the cover off the motor, and I have rebuilt the distributor. The points and breakers and the condenser is inside of the cap, and gapped the points and breakers to the appropriate thickness. Didn't make a video about that. I was short on time when I did that. Didn't have a lot of time to film it, but if you're going to work on a motor like this, one of these little books come in real handy, because all the information's in there about the details of doing, you know, gapping and the installation. And then I put a new coil on it, so a new coil and a new distributor guts. And I think that was why the motor went dead on me. I think the coil got hot and failed, and then when it cooled down it would start back. And also I was smelling a lot of gas, so I'm hoping that, you know, it looks like whoever did this carburetor last, it just looks a little rough. It looks, I don't know if they used like a gasket maker around there, right there. It doesn't look like a regular gasket, so I don't know. I'm gonna take that off, the whole carburetor off. This doesn't seem right. It seemed like that this side of the carburetor, it's a double barrel carburetor with low speed adjusters, no high speed adjuster, so it's a fixed high speed double barrel carb. And it seemed like that this side would adjust, but this side was doing nothing. So when I was turning this one, so I'm thinking all that just needs taken apart, and the rebuild kit put back together. That just come right off. So I don't know what the deal with that is, but I'm gonna get this carb taken off, took apart, cleaned, and hopefully put back together. I'm not real confident about doing these, because I've never had to rebuild one before. So I'm just gonna take my time, take it apart, clean it, put it back together. And I've got the book, and I've went through the procedure a couple times, but these motors are just from an era before my time, so I don't know that much about it. Same with the distributors, never had to fool with one before, but we'll figure it out. So I'm gonna get working on that. So getting this carb wasn't too bad, getting it off. So I took the screw out of this link that is the throttle linkage, and this, when you push the throttle, this advances the throttle. So I just took the screw out of that and kept that neat, and it just slides out of the way. And then there's a bolt here, a bolt on the front, and a bolt on the other side like this one. They're a little tight to get to, but you know, get in there and get them off. And then on this side is mounted to the carb is the choke. So it had this little brass line running to it. So there's several different types of, and it had a little connector, but there's several different types of chokes on a lot of these models of engines that I read about. And once I got those 3 bolts and that unhooked, I'll just pried this up off the gasket, and it's ready to come off. There's a fuel line on the back, so I'm gonna get that off. But I don't know what type of choke that is. I don't know if that's a water tube or I think there's another one that uses air, and another one is just electric. So I don't really know what comes up through this pipe, if that's water or if that's air, but I don't think it really matters for what we're doing. So I'm gonna keep going. So into getting these this carburetor rebuilt. So a couple of things I've noticed right off just from taking it apart. These seats, these low speed needles didn't have any packing nuts on them, so I think there's supposed to be some packing on those. These seemed a little seized. Tried to take that one out, and it just seems like it's trying to break. So I'm gonna get a bigger screwdriver, see if I can get a good grip on that. Maybe put a little penetrating oil in there, get that loosened up a little bit. And then on this low speed adjustment, this little knob wasn't seated correctly. The screw goes in and spreads out from the inside and holds this tight. So, and this needle was really tight. So I'm hoping it wasn't over tightened and did some damage, because you're not supposed to over tighten these in. But so just those couple of little things may be my reason that this motor's not running right. So I'm going to clean this up, try to get these seats out of here and get it cleaned up, and hopefully just put it back together and try to get these packing washers, or what they're called. I think those are supposed to have some packing washers on them. So I'm going to look in the book again before I put it back together, but I'm pretty sure that that's my problems. So on these little brass screws here, that's under the venturis, I think is what they call those, where those mount right there. Those are seized in there. I couldn't get those loose, and it was starting to chip away at the top. So I just stopped, and I'm just gonna leave those alone, because I don't want to break them further than they already are right there. So I put a little penetrating oil down around the screws, but give them a little while and tried to turn them, and it just started cracking at the top. So I'm just gonna leave that alone. Just got them cleaned up, got all the old gasket off of them, and just gonna put it back together. So this really isn't a in-depth detail on how to rebuild a carburetor on one of these old Johnsons, but just to show you that it can be done pretty easily. Just take your time, pay attention. So in putting this back together, where I thought those packing would come out with this needle, it didn't. So they were jammed in down inside of there. So I had to dig them out and clean it out real good. So that may not have been the problem, but they look to be in pretty rough shape. So we got the new ones kind of threaded on like this, but I have to see how to go back in. I may have to thread the needle on this piece like through there, and then put the packing washers on top of that. So I'll figure that out. So I'm getting this thing put back together. I'm losing daylight, so I'm just kind of trudging on through it. The toughest part was getting the packing washers in there. There's 4 washers that go in there. 2 of them's like a gasket style, and then the middle 2 that are sandwiched together are called packing washers. They're the white washers, and getting those things jammed in that hole was tough, and felt like I was breaking it. I don't know if I got this right side of the carb correct or not. So if it doesn't run right, probably gonna have to order a new kit and redo those packing washers and be more careful getting them down in there and not breaking them. But on this side I did break the black washer that goes in last, and I ended up just replacing it with a rubber O-ring. We'll see if it runs. If not, I'll just order a new kit and just go back and redo those washers in this low speed adjusting needle. But overall, got it cleaned up, got the gaskets back in, putting the screws back together. See if it runs. So I got it all put back together, I believe, correctly. So I got the linkage back on, the 3 bolts holding it on, the gas line hooked up. It's getting dark, so I'm just gonna call it an evening and pick back up tomorrow at some point. And the mosquitoes are getting bad, so I'm getting eat up. I know tomorrow we're taking the Tahoe out tomorrow, my day off, so may not get time to get out here and get it fired up, but hopefully in the afternoon I might find the time to come out and see if it runs, see if I can get it tuned in real good, and hopefully get it out on the water again, and maybe this time it won't leave me stranded. So on these motors, the muffs that you put on the lower unit with the water hose, it doesn't seem to fit very well on this model, so I bought this this old barrel, cut the top off of it, and I fill it up with water. And the book, this old manual, says that if you're going to run it, run the throttle open, anything other than an idle, that you need to have it in a tank. So on these old motors, one of these little tanks is probably what you need. So but I'm gonna call it quits for tonight, and we'll pick back up hopefully tomorrow. So I'm back on this carburetor, put it all together, and it just wouldn't start. And I figure that these packing washers that came with my rebuild kit were not the right size, because I just had to jam them in there, and they seemed like they were getting all warped. And these needles, see, I put that one on there, it slides all the way back, and when you try to put it in, it just hangs up and you have to jam it in there. I don't think that's right. So I ordered a new rebuild kit, and these new ones, this is the new kit I just got in, but it's the same kit I bought before, mainly for the gaskets, so I'd have a complete set of gaskets and O-rings, because everything else seemed to fit just fine except for these packing washers. So I ordered these packing washers from a website that just deals in marine engines, and they'll be here in a few days, but I've got a minute, so I'm just taking this apart and making sure all the passages are clean and blown out, make sure I didn't miss anything. I think I did miss, when I originally did it, taking these screws off and cleaning out the inside of that, and I think I missed a little bit where these needles seat in there, the low speed needles. I didn't clean that out real good, so I went through and made sure that all that's nice and clean down in there, and made sure it blew out. And I couldn't get these off, so I just made sure to blow those out real good, the high speed orifices there, and just kind of going through it again, making sure I didn't miss anything. The top side, everything looks fine there. I couldn't see anything at all that looked to be a problem. So I think my biggest problem is these low speed adjustments on that needle, and I'm gonna go ahead and get all this cleaned up, and then put it back together, and then just wait on my new packing washers to come in. And I noticed on the bag that came with this one, it looked like some old stock, but it said 80 to 85 horsepower just written in a Sharpie on the outside of the bag. So this kit may be for an 80 horsepower, not a 75. I don't know if that makes a difference, but it may be the reason that this is just a little bit bigger. Those needles may be just a little bit bigger on the bigger horsepower. I don't know, but we'll see when the new ones get here. If they're the same, then I'm just gonna have to be more careful getting them put in. Well, found the problem. It's on this side right here where the needle goes in. These little small threads that thread in down inside of there. It'll turn a little bit and get started, and then it just stops to where that should thread all the way down. Those threads in there are damaged, so yeah, it's probably impossible to see, but these right there on the top side where this threads in, those may be damaged too, because that's hard to get in past that point right there. But then past those threads are another set of threads way down in there. We're not gonna be able to see them in this light. But anyways, I took it to a machine shop that's here local, and they were a little reluctant to look at it, but they did. And he said he didn't have the size tap that I needed, but he gave me the size tap and the type of tap that I need to fix it. And he just said, you know, go ahead and order it and get it in, and if I didn't feel comfortable with it, he said bring it back and he would tap it out for me. So I'm going to order the tap and hopefully repair these threads. And that's probably my problem. I probably damaged those picking out the washers in there, so I had to take a metal pick and get down in there and pick out all those pieces. Either that, or I cross threaded it trying to get this in with those washers that were too tight. So I'm pretty sure this was my doing. I'm not going to blame anybody else, because I'm pretty sure that I did that. But the good thing is, it looks like when you get it started that it's pretty straight in there. So hopefully the threads that help get it started will get that tap started straight, and I won't have to worry about getting it crooked. But we'll see. Wait on the tool to get here, and then we'll get this thing put back together. So I got my packing washers in that I ordered, and they fit just right. Let's see if I can get that in there. So how it just fits right down in there. The others, I was having to jam them in there just to get them around that opening. It fits perfect. So this will help get me going right. So I'm back here working on the carburetor some more. I ordered my tap. I ordered a flat, what they call a bottom tap, but this one came as a regular tap. So what I ordered is not what I got. So what I did, I took this tap and I drilled a hole in a piece of metal, and I ran it in and tapped a thread, and then I backed it out just to where the tip was sticking through the metal, and I took my grinder and I ground that tip off, because what I didn't want is that tip going way down in the bottom of that hole that I was tapping and damaging the bottom when I bottomed it to the bottom. So I went ahead and ran the tap through, and I was a little bit nervous about it, because you know, if it's not the right size and you tap it too big, your needle's not going to fit anymore. But I ran it through, cleaned out all those threads and got them all straightened up, and now I'll just take this one out and run it in. Now this needle threads in like it's supposed to and goes all the way to the bottom real smooth. So that's what I had to do. It was hanging up and wasn't going any further right there, but now it's bottomed out, so I know it's fixed. So hopefully get this thing put back together, and this thing is going to run. So we'll see. Alright, it's the next day, and I've got my tank filled up, and just left the cowl off. So we're gonna, this thing's been sitting about a month and a half, over a month and a half, coming up on 2 months since I've been working on this thing. So it's it kind of got kicked out of the carport, so I've tried to keep it covered with a tarp, but it needs a good cleanup. Needs a good dusting off and washing and vacuuming. But we're gonna get in here and see if we can't get this thing to run. So we're gonna give this thing a couple of pumps just till that ball gets stiff. You can see that bowl on that fuel pump filling up, so we're full. And I'm gonna put this on full choke, so it's on full choke. So we'll fire it up on this one, which is a little different than the newer boats. Neutral, so your gear selector is there and your throttle's there, so it needs to be a neutral, and your throttle all the way down, and that's the start position. I don't know if there's supposed to be a label there, but that's the start position. If you go too far forward with the throttle, it won't start. So we'll give it a turn here. So now let me turn it to choke off. This is the way I usually start it. Oh, she's running. Not for long. So I'll give it another shot. Let's see if we can make a little bit of adjustments. So it says, I think that says high to turn them this way. So I'm gonna turn these out about like that. See what that does. So that definitely didn't do anything good. So I'm gonna put them back where they were, and I'm gonna go the other way just a little bit. So now I'm going to put it in gear and give it a little throttle and see how it runs. Well, it went dead when I gave it more throttle. So I just hooked the water hose up straight in there, let it run.
I'm gonna let that water run while I run it in gear, because it's throwing all the water out. I'm afraid it's gonna get water get to a low level. So while we're running some throttle, I'm gonna fill that thing up and let it run. I'm gonna put it in gear again, give it a little gas. I don't really want to give it full throttle. Definitely sounds better than it did. Sounds like it's running right. We'll take it out, get it on the water, and see how it runs. So we're back at the river one more time at the boat ramp. Beautiful evening on the Tennessee River. Got a little dock here, so this is nice. I'm gonna give it a shot so we can get this thing to run. So we're in the water, we're gonna see what we got here. Still no high speed. No high speed. So I'm back working on the carburetor, and I went ahead and pulled the fuel pump. It's just not running right. Wide open throttle, I'm getting just bogged down. So I got some jets, some replacement, some new jets, and I just found a whole lot of new ones on eBay, so I just bought the whole lot. I needed 2, and when I got into this carb earlier, the jets go here. They just seem seized, and I couldn't get them unstuck. So what I did, I got a heat gun. I just went out and bought one, so I don't have one. So I went and bought a new heat gun, and I'll just kind of show you. These sit in here in that hole down in there like that, and they screw down in the bottom, so the threads are at the bottom of the hole. So the threads are down here on the outside, like right in here. So I just heated that portion up with the heat gun about 4 or 5 minutes. Got it good and hot right around that area, and then unscrewed them. They came loose with a good bit of heat. So that's how I got those out. So I'm gonna clean these out real good. Another thing I noticed when I took it apart, this part right here was kind of gummed up. So I'm gonna make sure that that's cleaned with some carb cleaner and blown out real good before I put it back together. This one, that side was kind of gummed up, and then I've got a rebuild kit for the fuel pump, so I'm gonna rebuild that. Hopefully whatever's causing it to not run at wide open throttle, it idles pretty good. Just when I would put the throttle down, it just bogged. And I know there's several things that it could be, but I'm gonna try this first. We're back out at the river one more time. This is the 3rd time since I've started working on the engine that we've taken it out to take it a test. First two were total fails, just wouldn't go wide open throttle. Went through it, the carb again, went through the distributor again. I found one wire that wasn't crimped very tight on the coil, so maybe that might be it. I rebuilt the fuel pump, but I didn't get any footage of that, but it was pretty simple. So you can see the river's kind of low. Hasn't rained much in the last couple months. It's about the end of the season. I don't have many more good days to try this out in the actual water. It's getting to be mid-October, and you can see I'm standing right here up on the boat dock. Usually I can get in and out of the boat from here, so we're down quite a bit. And I'm gonna give it a shot, see if we got it fixed. So I got it fired up, and I'm just letting it warm up a little bit before we leave out. Well, I took it out and it didn't do any better. Just no throttle in gear. It just wouldn't even get up on plane. So back to the drawing board, trying to figure out what's wrong with it. May start looking at the prop, maybe something in the gear case. I don't know. Alright, I'm checking out this engine again. I found one little spot right here where this hose isn't attached well. Now I've taken this off and redone the fuel pump, so this would not have probably not been my problem before. But when I pumped the primer bulb on the gas tank tube, you can see there's fuel leaking out of it. So that may be one of my problems. So I'm gonna fix that, see if I can get that sealed up good and on better, and then run it and see if it'll run right. That's probably letting air in as the fuel is pumping through, and I'm sure it's spraying out once we get it going. So I've got a zip tie on that hose that was leaking, and that stopped the leaking, and I was going to go out and check it, and the starter wouldn't work. So the starter is just the Bendix comes up and makes contact with the flywheel. There's some teeth in there, and you can, when you turn it over, it would come up and it would hit the teeth, and then it was like it was just spinning inside, like it wasn't like it had lost something in there. I don't know exactly, but I'm taking this starter off. This is a Presto Light starter. There was 2 or 3 different kinds of starters they used on the different models of motors during these years they made these, and these parts, some of the parts in these starters are a little bit hard to source. So I'm gonna take it off and I'm gonna clean it and look and see maybe some of these parts need to be replaced. But there's 2 bolts on the bottom on this one, and it looks like that this bottom part's going to come out, and then it's going to loosen the top where the Bendix is attached as well. So it looks like it's kind of attached to this it's like it's sandwiched by this piece of the support or part of the top of the motor. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and take this off and look at it and get to working on it and see if I can see what's wrong with it. But in the meantime, I found on eBay somebody was selling a pull starter that mounts to the top. So it's kind of just a little assembly that goes over the top. Hopefully, it was saying it was for this model, so we'll see when it gets here. So if the starter ever doesn't work, I can just pull start it. It's designed with a little notch here to put a rope in, and you can pull start it, and rope was supposed to come with the boat, but I haven't been able to find it, so I didn't get into all that. When it wouldn't start, I just headed back home. So maybe we can get this thing going in the next week or 2 before it gets cold. So I got the old one taken off. You can see it's missing some teeth. This is the top end of the starter. So I found a used one online
Looks like all the teeth are there, and it looks like it matches up pretty good. So I'm gonna throw this on, put it back together, see if that gets us going. So I've got the starter installed. These two little bolts on the bottom, it's kind of hard to hold this in place. You have to take this top little bracket loose so you can get it up and put that up under it. And then it just sits on this bracket, and then the two bolts come up through the bracket and come through the top part. So these are separate pieces sandwiched with that bracket in between them. And so it's kind of hard holding that up and getting those two bolts started. If you've got a ratcheting wrench, it's a 3/8 inch, that helps a lot getting under there and using that ratcheting wrench, because those bolts, that one's way back in there. But you can get it. Just took a little doing. Got my tank filling up, so I'm gonna see if this thing will fire up this new starter piece on. So the pull starter idea didn't really work out with this motor, because this one has got, and I didn't know this before, I just bought it thinking it would just mount up to this top plate right here, but this one's got the charging system built in underneath this, and so this, and with the electric starter, and so I didn't know that this little piece didn't just bolt right up to it and pull start it. It's got a little groove cut here for an emergency start. You can put a rope in there and wind it around and pull it, but I was hoping that this would engage and just use that for a pull start, but it didn't work. So I'm stuck with an extra part here that I don't need, but you live and learn. So when working on the starter, it was suggested to me by folks smarter than me with these old boats that I needed to check my wires for the starter and the ground, so the power and the ground. So what I did, and one of the comments, so I'm on a Facebook group for old outboards, and this one member suggested that you buy a set of jumper cables, and this is 2 gauge wire jumper cables, and I bought them on Amazon, and I'll just put a picture up of what kind they were, because I don't remember right off the top of my head, but I was afraid I was gonna have to split, you know how they usually come connected together. These came separate, total separate wires, and I thought I was gonna have to put a new end on it and come with the end already attached, just like this, onto this lead, and you just peel this back and pull it down, and there's just a little bolt in there on this lead handle, and I just took the lead off. This is a really nice lead too, nice and sturdy, so I'm gonna keep those, but just to take the ends off and use this for your power and your ground wire. So that's what I'm gonna do. And but this one, I was pleasantly surprised. Don't have to put any ends. I'm probably gonna get a heat shrink tube and heat shrink around this connection right here, just to kind of keep a little moisture out. But that's all I'm gonna have to do, and maybe I may have to drill that hole a little bit bigger if it doesn't fit. But I'm happy with this. You know, that's a copper end, and I thought I was gonna have to put all new ends. Now I'll probably have to cut this ground wire and make another one from the terminal box to the battery, so I will have to add some ends doing that job. But both ends have the terminals already attached, the lugs. So this was a nice purchase. I'll put the picture up and let you see what kind it is if somebody's wanting to do this job. This made it so much easier. I didn't have to split these in half, split those cords, and I didn't have to mount any of these, so I can run that straight from the box straight to the motor and hook it up if I wanted to. But I know I'm gonna have to run some wires from the battery to the box, so I'll have to cut them a little bit. So this is pretty straightforward. The new power wire, the new ground wire, and I cleaned those connections real good with some denatured alcohol. I'm going to have to go back later. I don't have a heat shrink tubing big enough for those wires, but I just unhooked the old ones, fished them out, both of the new ones on, and ran them through first, and then just route the wire along this loom like with the others, and then it's just going to come to this box. So this box lives in, it's got a cover on it. It's behind the battery. You can see where the power wire comes in to the starter solenoid, and then on the other side of the solenoid is the power wire that runs to the battery. So I'll have to make a new end to install on this side, and then make a new end to go on either this side or the battery. So I'll have to install two ends, two lugs on the power wire, and then the same thing with the ground. The ground is mounted underneath here. It comes in to here, and then let's see, I know there's another one somewhere. This one goes to the battery, and there's a place for the ground to come in. It's somewhere in here. I don't really see it right off. Oh, I think both grounds are connected there together, I believe. The one that runs out and the one that comes in. So I think both grounds are wired in there together. I just have to take all this apart, but the ground is under here, right there. And that's it. So we'll wire up some new wires, get those ran, get the new lugs put on, and then that should help the starter run a little smoother. And then this thing looks original too, so I may need a new starter solenoid, but I'm gonna worry about that later. I may just clean all these connections up real good, because that's looking kind of corroded right there. So I'll probably clean all these up, get it looking better, and see if it'll start better. So I'm here by the motor, and you can kind of see where all these wires were kind of loomed together with this factory. I guess it's kind of like a heat shrink, but it's big enough to cover all these wires. And I just cut the ends off of that old power and ground, and I'm just going to take this and zip tie these new power and ground to that loom, and just kind of keep them together. Probably come back and get maybe like a muffler wrap or something to wrap that up. So we're going to get these wires ready. I've measured these wires into the boat, the length they need to be, and I'm just going to attach this this lug. It's a little bigger than the originals, but it'll be alright. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wire and cut it back to where this goes in, fits. And then I'm just going to fill this with flux. I'm going to melt some flux and fill it up, and then put that wire down in there while that flux is melted. And then I'm just going to flux these on. I'm not going to crimp them. I don't have a crimping tool, and in that little box it's not going to be a lot of those wires aren't going to be pulled on much, I don't believe. So fluxing is going to be fine. So that's how I'm going to install these wires, the ground and the hot. And then I'll have to turn around and put one more set of lugs from the box to the battery. So I'll work on. So I got that one fluxed on. Fit pretty good. The little bit of the rubber part kind of melted in there, but it feels like it's on pretty good. I ran out of flux, so I used all I had on this one. I may heat that up and take it off and put some more flux in just to fill it up. This lug seems a little too big for that wire, but so I may fill it up just a little bit more on the inside with some flux. So I'll have to do the others tomorrow to go to the store, and I'm running out of daylight, so I got a little bit done. Kind of got those
zip tied on there a little bit. I'll kind of zip tie them on up to the box, and I'll have to, when I go to the store, I'll see if I can pick up some heat shrink and heat shrink those. But yeah, we're getting there. Gonna have this thing starting a little better pretty soon. So after measuring and cutting the lines running to the battery, and I just matched those up with the wires that were already there, just the same length. This was the scrap that I was left with, so that length was perfect for this boat. So I've got my wires all fixed up, my new ground, and put some heat shrink, and the same with the power wire to the starter, some heat shrink. So what I've got some wrap, some new wrap. This plastic sheathing is just ripped all up, so I'm gonna open that up and take the old power and ground out, and then wrap that with some new tape. But I don't have it yet, so that'll neaten all this up, make that all nice and neat, and make it all might go all the way up to that, so it'll protect those wires from rubbing maybe when the motor turns back and forth. And went ahead and got all my interior to the battery and into the box fixed. So inside the boat, there's this box that houses a lot of the electronics, and so I went ahead and replaced the starter solenoid. The new one was a little bit bigger than the old, so I had to kind of move some wires around and adjust it. But so the good thing about this is this cover has a wiring diagram built into it, so that's pretty nice. So I didn't have to worry about the wires going back where they needed to go. So you can see I got the new power wire, one that comes in from the battery to the solenoid, and then the other one that goes to the motor. New ground wire. The only thing is, with this old sheathing and all those wires together, it wouldn't fit back in the same spot that's got the little notch for this cover to go on. So when I take this sheathing off and take those old wires out of that sheathing and bundle up all the new wires, I'm hoping it'll fit in. But these wires are a good bit bigger than the ones that came with the boat originally, so I may have to get some longer screws, and this cover may not go on the way it was. But I fired it up, and it starts really good. It starts a lot better. This is going to help a lot with those new power and ground wires. But now I've got to work on the distributor a little bit, because I'm not getting spark to two of the spark plugs. So in this distributor cap, I don't know if you can see in there, but these contact points on the inside of the distributor cap, I've been sanding that one down. You can see there's just a little bit of black on the inside there, but look at the other one. The whole thing is just covered in looks like it's burnt in there. So I'm going to take some sandpaper and I'm going to get rid of all that black that I can. I've already worked on this one a little bit, and it's down to just a little bit. It's hard to see, but I'm going to clean all these tips up on the inside of this cap, because I think that may be keeping me from keeping those cylinders from firing. And I went ahead and sanded the inside of the between the two breaker points, because they may be a little corroded. Even though they're brand new, there might be a little film or something on them. So I cleaned them, I sanded them and then cleaned them with some denatured alcohol. Doing the same thing with these. I'm sanding these down and then cleaning them with denatured alcohol. So we'll see if that works. So you can kind of see that looks a little better to me. I can see couldn't get all of it out. I'm sure if I took a Dremel and Dremeled those smooth, that it would come completely. But I think that's going to be good enough. I'll be able to tell if that made a difference. A new cap like this, I think the cheapest one I could find was like $210 plus tax plus shipping, so you know, $240, $250 in my hand to replace this cap. And I'm hoping that I don't have to. I replaced a few spark plugs, the two spark plugs that went to these two cylinders that are not firing. This 2 and
cylinder 2 and 4 is on this side of the engine. Both of those are not firing. So I'm gonna clean this up a little more, clean some of that dust out of there, and look it over one more time, and then I'll fire it up. So I've got my inline spark tester put on to cylinder 2. So this is going to show if any sparks coming through. There's a little light that pops on and off. It's a pretty cheap little tester, and neither one of these 2 and 4 cylinders were firing. The other two were running fine. So it runs on 2 cylinders, but not very fast. So I'm going to give it a shot and see what see if this thing will fire up and run on the adjustments I made to the distributor. Well, I got it fixed. Alright, we're here at the boat dock on the river, and we're going to give this one more shot. It's a beautiful day for January. It's like low 60s, sun shining, the river's back up, current's running pretty strong. I can see the water's really cold, but it fired up one turn. So we're going to see if this thing will run. I'm really happy how this motor turned out with the repairs that we did. The next project on this boat will be paint correction on the gel coat, cut and polish. So I'll bring you along and show you how that's done on the next video. Thank you very much for watching.